Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. And we agreed to a lot of things, but they didn't agree to that. And I think they will agree to it. I'm almost sure of it. In fact, I am sure of it. If they don't agree, there's no deal.
Has your timetable changed in any way in terms of ending this conflict?
No, it's going on. Just right now, there's no fighting. Right now, we have a blockade. They're doing no business.
That's President Trump yesterday reiterating he will not come to an agreement with Tehran if it means they will obtain a nuclear weapon. The president told me over the weekend as such that the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz will go into effect. It is in effect right now. Talks of future negotiations between the U.S. and Iran could be in the works. Meanwhile, Pakistan is reportedly offering to host a new round of talks this week, perhaps in Islamabad. The talks could reportedly resume as early as Thursday of this week. Meanwhile, Fox sources say that the past weekend negotiations fell apart after Tehran severely misjudged what leverage it thought it had. The Journal is reporting that the U.S. asked Iran to suspend nuclear enrichment for 20 years with a moratorium that could come with sanctions relief. Lebanon, meanwhile, is meeting with the U.S. and Israel today in Washington for talks to separate its ceasefire talks from the Iranian talks. Joining me now is Texas Congressman Ronny Jackson, member of the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. And what is your take on the status of this war at this moment?
Well, I think President Trump's doing everything he can to end this war as quickly as possible. The Straits are critical. We cannot let the Straits be the issue here. He has worked aggressively to come up with some type of negotiation that they could accept, with the one red line being they will not under any circumstances have nuclear weapons. He's made that pretty clear. That's not even negotiable. But they continue to cause problems. So he's cutting off their lifeline right now as far as their finances go. He's going to start the blockade. He's not going to allow them to finance their war on Israel and their war on the United States via their oil revenues while shutting everybody else in the Gulf down. So I think he's doing the right thing. I think he's doing what needs to be done. I think this will ultimately drive them back to the negotiating table. If not, President Trump's made it very clear that we'll pick up right where we left off with the bombing and the attacks, and we will continue to finish this regime off.
And so in the meantime, you've got to deal with getting DHS open and getting the president's agenda executed. I know that Senate Republicans are working to fast-track the funding for immigration enforcement without support from colleagues on the Democrat side. After all, we are entering day 60 of the shutdown of DHS. Tell us about those plans.
Well, this is no time, as we were just discussing with what's going on in Iran. The country's under maximum threat right now as far as a potential terrorist attack. And DHS is the organization that protects us from that with the TSA and with their Customs and Border Protection. They're the ones that provide that protection. Right now, the Coast Guard's not getting funded. CISA, which is critical for our cybersecurity, is not getting funded. FEMA's not being funded. The Senate passed a bill before they left where they defunded, specifically defunded ICE and DHS. Well, we in the House, we're not going to let that happen. So we would not pass that bill because we had just passed complete funding for DHS just prior to that. So now they're going to come back and they're now making the argument that they want us to pass this bill that they sent over that defunds DHS and ICE, but with the promise that they're going to use the reconciliation process to fund DHS and ICE. Well, you know, unfortunately, we've learned in the House that we can't trust Democrats, but sometimes we can't trust the Senate Republicans on some of this stuff as well. And so most of us are standing our ground right now and saying we will consider that, but we want to see the process for reconciliation started and as far down the road as the Senate can possibly get it before we consider voting on the bill that will fund the remaining parts of DHS. And so, I think that's a responsible way to do this.
So what else goes in that reconciliation package? Is this just DHS? Is this just Customs and Border Patrol and ICE?
Well, that's the big question, right? A lot of people want the SAVE Act, Save America Act in there as well. And that's why this is such a horrible process, Maria, because reconciliation takes a little bit of time because you have to go through this process where they have to make sure it goes through the bird bath and that it's relevant for the reconciliation process. Takes a little bit longer. We don't have any time right now. The shutdown's been going on for a long time now, but we want to put other stuff in there. We've been saying for a long time, we've been telling the American people that we're going to use the reconciliation process to do all these great things that our country needs needs to get done that we haven't done so far. If we're going to use this reconciliation process, it can't be just for that. We need to put other stuff in there that's important to the American people, like the Save America Act. The problem is I don't know how much of that we can get in there legally through the reconciliation process. That's going to take a little time to work out.
Well, I
but the Senate
understand that.
needs to be all over it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the question becomes, can you make the Save America Act a budgetary item? Whereas you have to make the case that you're going to be sending money to the states to help secure their elections. Does the defense supplemental money go in that as well?
Absolutely, it has to. We have to get that done. That's another good point. We have to get that money in there as well.
All right. Meanwhile, tomorrow is tax day. We've got new IRS data showing that the average refund is up better than 11% compared to the same time last year. I spoke with Social Security Administrator Frank Bisignano on this program last month about what we can expect. Here's what he said. Watch.
Everybody's getting more money in these pay cycles by reducing their deductions, right? So more money in their pocket, bigger, faster. If you have direct deposit, which is in the high 90% of people, on average, 9 days to get your refund. Faster refunds, bigger refunds, better deductions. We're seeing it in the economy.
So what do you want to say about this Stevens research that we have? The average check, $3,800 plus.
$3,800.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I think what you're going to see is the multiplying effect because of the deductions. And Americans are feeling exactly what the president forecasted, what the president wanted to happen. His insight to what to do for the American public is being felt in every corner.
So we see that this money is up. The president welcomed a DoorDash driver to the Oval Office yesterday. She brought the commander-in-chief one of his favorite meals, McDonald's. The grandmother from Arkansas says she picked up an extra $11,000 thanks to the president's no tax on tips policy, Congressman. Are there tax items that you'd like to see in a reconciliation package that you were not able to get in the big, beautiful bill?
Well, sure. I think anything that we have put together in the past, we haven't got in there. We got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Obviously, people are getting more money back. I think that people are going to start seeing for the first time some of them the reconciliation, the impact that it's going to have on their finances. People traditionally wait till the last minute to file. I know sometimes I do. So a lot of people haven't got those tax returns back yet, but they're going to see that extra money coming in. Okay. And I think it's going to make a difference, and hopefully it's going to impact the midterm elections in a great way. But yes, we need as much of tax reform as we can possibly get across the line into reconciliation. This is going to be our one chance to get stuff done before the midterms, and God forbid if we lose the majority, we are not going to get anything done after that. So it's now or never. We need to be pushing as if we're not going to have the majority and get everything done now.
All right, we will be watching all your work. Thanks so much, Congressman. We appreciate it. Ronny Jackson joining us.